All right, UFC 296 is in the books, and a middling grade. I mean, the main event is obviously, uh, let's just say, not a highlight, but the rest of the card was really, really good. We had a lot of finishes on the undercard, even more than I thought we were going to get. That was cool. That was awesome. The main card was more or less what I expected. I mean, again, if you remember from my preview, I was pretty negative on this card. So, like, I was really hyped for Pantoja versus Royval, and that mostly delivered. I was pretty anti the main event. I was, of course, sad about Tony Ferguson and Wonder Boy's fights, and yeah, in a way, both of them were better than I thought. And Josh Emmett versus Bryce Mitchell was a good fight, and that's what we got. So I got to talk about the pre stuff, what I'm going to call Dadgate, because I don't know what it is, but in mixed martial arts this week, everyone has just decided to be kind of crappy to their opponent's dads. Now I'm going to level with you. I am someone who has a complex and not altogether positive relationship with his own father. Now, this leaves me fairly calloused, I guess would be the word, in terms of trash talk pertaining to fathers, because it's not a button for me. But the thing here, when it comes to Dricus Duplessis and Sean Strickland's father, and Colby Covington and Leon Edwards' father, is that I don't understand why we're considering that to be the height of trash talk. Like with Colby Covington, it's often said the man is playing a character. You just need to not be sensitive about it, and you need to accept that as a character. It doesn't reflect his real life stuff, whatever, and roll with it. And I'm okay with that. I'm fine with that. Whatever. It's fighting. We're not in like a safe moral space here. Like long ago, I came to grips with the fact that combat sports is going to say mean things, is going to cross lines in the trash talking phase, and then they're going to go out there and punch each other in the head. I mean, whatever. But like my thing has always been like, why is this considered like witty? Like your opponent has a dead father. That father was a criminal by Leon Edwards' own recollection. It just seems like a really, really easy thing to go with. And it was like kind of like Dricus Duplessis' same thing with Sean Strickland's abusive relationship with his own father. There's a line that has come out on that I think it was MMA Junkie published it. I could be wrong, but like apparently DDP in an interview said like I am surprised it was that easy to trigger him. You're talking about the guy's abusive relationship with his father that may or may not include sexual assault. If he's not triggered by that, if he's not upset by that, I'm more concerned. Like it's the classic like, okay, whatever. There are no lines that can't be crossed in trash talk. Okay, fine. But that means that there are no lines in response that can't be crossed. Like it should go both ways. Let's talk about the fights. We, of course, had Leon Edwards versus Colby Covington for the UFC welterweight title in the main event, and the fight stunk. I enjoyed probably the first 20 minutes of it because there was a certain level of redemption here because I was the guy standing at the corner of it's not about Colby Covington's politics that makes me not want to see this fight. It's not about Colby Covington being a mean human being. It's not about all these things that like Colby Covington fans will claim it's about, I guess in a nutshell. This is not going to be a good fight. And it wasn't. It was so the thing is that everyone looks at Colby Covington highlights and they're like, okay, Colby Covington is still the guy who fought Demian Maia or RDA or Jonathan Mounier. The fact that they had to dig back to 2014 to find like highlight clips of him finishing people and being like actually interesting is hilarious. The recent Colby Covington performances, the George Masvidal fight, the rematch with Usman, and even parts of the Tyron Woodley fight were him being dull. The first Usman fight, I think, broke something inside of him. It confronted him with his own mortality, his own limitations of toughness, his own fallibility. And there was no real room in his style to really change to become something else. But he tried to. And what he tried to kind of become is this sort of back foot striker who would get you to commit, and then he would turn on the aggression and the wrestling. And it's like, Leon Edwards just isn't going to do that. Leon is taller than him. Leon is longer than him. Leon is a better outside striker. And he's just going to continuously piece up Colby Covington at range. And he did. And that's why this was a dull fight. It's why it was an easy fight to call. It's why it was dull. That was the problem. That was the problem with the fight. It's not that he's a bad guy, because I've kind of said this, like, arguably one of the best fighters in UFC history is Jon Jones. Jon Jones is also notable for being one of the worst human beings. But I have never not been excited for a Jon Jones fight. I have never not been interested in, all right, what is Jon Jones going to go out there and do? The fight fan side of me, the analytical side, is always like, this will be interesting. Or if it was not interesting, like the Anthony Smith versus Jon Jones fight to me, it was because of the other guy. It was because Anthony Smith as a title contender doesn't really make a lot of sense. Because Dominic Reyes, which ended up being a really good fight, but like going into it, I wasn't necessarily excited for it. It's like Dominic Reyes is not going to necessarily ask a question of Jon Jones that, Jones is not going to be able to, relatively easily diffuse. That same logic just did not apply to Colby Covington. There was a time when I liked Colby Covington as a fighter. He was maximizing his cardio, maximizing his toughness, being aggressive, taking a fight to an opponent in a manner that I actually enjoyed. I understood that other people didn't. Other, different cups of tea for different people. But for me, it was interesting. And that's not there anymore. It's just not. And almost 2 years on the couch, what was that going to be? And the answer was crap. The answer was just crap. The only moments Colby Covington had in this fight were where Leon Edwards was dumb. When Leon would elect to grapple with him. Because there were moments there where it's like, all right, Colby's in on a takedown or whatever, but there's a pretty easy hinge out of here. There's a pretty easy pivot to get out of here. And Leon would just not take it. He would attack the neck with a ninja choke at one point, or willingly go to the ground with him. And the end of the fight was basically Colby Covington taking him down and Leon making no effort to actually get up. The only successful offense Colby had was what Leon let him have. I did think Colby won the 5th round, but it doesn't really matter. And now we got him out here saying he thinks he won the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. I don't think he does, because post-fight, he was, I don't want to say gracious in defeat, accepting in defeat. Maybe that's the answer. And then pivoted into we got to make America great again. We got to secure the southern border. We got to end inflation. We need to vote for Donald Trump because Donald Trump will make this country great again. And ironically, here's the thing. Here's the thing with this whole Donald Trump fascination. Number one, it's cringe because even Donald Trump clearly is uncomfortable with it. But number two, it's kind of I would prefer to not get a political speech from a fighter. To be clear, even an endorsement of Joe Biden or an endorsement of Bernie Sanders, because there were MMA fighters who were going on interviews to talk about Bernie Sanders. And I was not interested in that either because, in general, they're not going to get very deep. They're going to get very, very surface level. And that's kind of the thing is and this kind of is all of the Donald Trump talk. He's going to end inflation. How? What's the plan? What's the game plan? What's the policy? What's the practical utilitarian application here? There is none. How is he going to secure the southern border? He had 4 years to do it, didn't do it. Actually, Actually, his presidential term had some of the least actual apprehensions of border crossers of all time, which is kind of ironic because at the same time, Trump fans will claim that America was never a better place to try to like basically sneak into because we were great. We were making America great again. Like in theory, more people would want to go to great America than Biden's America, but yet the Border Patrol has actually picked up more people. It's kind of the whole thing with like border control, Republicans in general. There's no actual difference. There's no utilitarian or practical difference. Anyways, that's all the politics I have, I swear. Covington lost. I hope to never really see him fight again. Not that I don't think that there isn't an interesting fight out there for him. It's just that we have to deal with like this whole rigmarole circus again and again. He had fans out there like, oh, he's just gonna melt. He's just gonna melt Leon Edwards. Why? Like there were people who were like, man, Nate Diaz almost finished Leon Edwards. Colby Covington is like way more likely to do it. Based on what? based on what performance are you pointing to here on this matter? And it's just I don't have any interest in seeing him fight again. That's all there is to it. I hope he's gone. I hope we get Leon versus Bilal, not because I necessarily think it's going to be an amazing fight, but I believe that the UFC should at some point have to actually honor what they say, which was they put Bilal in a number one contender fight. He won that fight. They put Bilal in as a backup fighter. That supposedly has meant that you're a contender for the title. So the UFC, by its own actions, words, admissions, have made Bilal the number one contender. So he should get the title shot. There you go. That's all. I want what the UFC says to mean something. I'm not excited for Bilal versus Leon. I'm not a massive Bilal fan. It's that there is no one else that should, based on the UFC's own logic and behavior, get the title shot. There you go. And like I said, for Leon, it's retirement. Go be a right-wing pundit, whatever. I don't know, whatever you want to be. Because I kind of said this to somebody who was trying to engage in defense of Colby, I guess, in a nutshell. And I just wasn't having any of it. It was kind of like I don't think he's serious about fighting. I think he has learned that at one point he really liked fighting. I don't doubt that. But I think he's at this point done. I don't think he likes fighting anymore. I think he got broke. And I'm not saying that he's not a man or he's a coward or whatever. It's he had the moment that a lot of fighters do where their confidence, delusion in indestructibility has come to an end. And if there wasn't really much else to your style before that, what's left? Anyways, co-main event, Alexander Pantoja versus Brendan Royval 2. Not everyone's cup of tea. Essentially, this boiled down to Royval being huge, being 5'9". I'm not saying necessarily on a physical level being huge, but like he's incredibly tall for a 125er. He was very, very uncomfortable for Pantoja to exchange at range with him. But at the same time, Royval wasn't really able to hit him. Or not hit him, hurt him. The fifth round was a good example of this. You have a gassed out Pantoja who cannot effectively explode into a takedown anymore. And you have, I'm just gonna pop, give the microphone a slight pop there, and it's like you would get that pop in the face of Pantoja and whatever. He's just eating it. He's fine. And that was the problem for Royval is it's like, this is the only thing that you can do to win this fight, which is basically just volume strike. But you're bad at stopping takedowns. You're usually a guy who has to scramble your way out of things. But Pantoja is a fantastic scrambler, fantastic top control guy, fantastic back taker. And he's going to get his dominant positions. And he did. And he won all 5 rounds, I think on all 3 judges' scorecards, maybe? Hang on. No, Judge Eric Colon gave Royval 1 round. I'm assuming the 5th. Yes. And I'm fine with that. I gave the 5th round to to Royval as well. But like, just getting put into dominant positions, losing out on the scrambles, threatened with a rear naked choke, threatened with an arm triangle at various points, threatened with various, choke related submissions. And the fact that you can't meaningfully hurt this guy on the feet, and he can meaningfully hurt you, because every time Pantoja would actually like commit to some power striking, he did hurt Royval. Not like knocking him down, not like almost knocking him out, but like the reaction told you that like, ow, that hurt. and that was kind of what it came down to. I think in order to beat Pantoja, you need to be able to do more than scramble. And that's the unfortunate thing, is that even when I was trying to build up Royval in my head in this fight, it's just like, what is Royval good at? And how does that beat Pantoja? And the answer is, it doesn't. So I don't really know what to do with either of these fighters up next, because Flyweight's in a little bit of a mess right now. Pantoja could fight Amir Albazi if he beats Brandon Moreno. That would be the easiest thing. But like, if Moreno wins, then like, what do you do? Do you do Pantoja versus Moreno again? I don't know. Do you do Manel Kape if he beats Matheus Nicolau? Because like, the problem with Matheus Nicolau is he just lost to Royval, so you can't book him as a title contender if he beats Kape. So you're relying on Manel Kape winning that fight. You could, I guess, do Muhammad Mokaev off of probably not a fight with Alex Perez, like straight up. That's what it comes down to. It's weird. And then like for Royval, I guess a rematch with Kai Kara-France would be cool, because that's a highly rated fighter that, it would be fun. It would be pointful. It would be an interesting rematch of two guys who are, title picture adjacent still, but you can't really market them in a title fight in the near future. So let them fight. Let them headline a, fight night thing or whatever. Do more with the flyweight division is I guess what I would say. Like, I've never really understood, and it comes up with Tadger Ulanbekov fighting on the undercard against Cody Durden instead of being on the main card. And I honestly, and people are like, well, what fight would you remove? Well, I would probably remove Josh Emmett versus Bryce Mitchell. You can use that as a featured prelim. It's a late notice fight, and it is not a title contender fight. Ulanbekov winning against Durden, might as well just talk about that right now, which was Ulanbekov just, more or less having his way with Cody Durden, and then eventually submitting him. Because every time Durden would have, like, even a modicum of success, he would just, crash into the clinch and grapple with Ulanbekov, which is an incredibly bad idea. It was why I had no interest in picking Durden. It's like, all right, there is a way of Cody Durden to win this fight, because, like, Ulanbekov is not a perfect fighter. There are things that he doesn't do very well. There are things that Tim Elliott did to him that Cody Durden can do to him as well, that he can make it messy. He can make it, a little bit chaotic. But like, Cody Durden at the end of the day is used to being able to like safety valve and be like, all right, I've got something done on the striking, and now I'm going to wrestle with you. And every time he did, they would end up in the clinch. Ulanbekov would score the sort of leg reap side takedown, where he would like, wrap the leg around, trip him down, put him on the ground, and then like, dominate. Because Ulanbekov is a fantastic top grappler. And that fight should have been on the main card, because you need to develop the flyweight division to something. The UFC has like done its best to try to kill its own division, and I've never understood why. This goes back to like the Mighty Mouse days of like, oh, why is Mighty Mouse not drawing? Don't get me wrong, some of that is Mighty Mouse. Some of that is him being kind of like a nerdy guy and not really connecting with the fan base, obviously. There is that part. I'm not taking responsibility away from Mighty Mouse, but the UFC would book his title contenders on the undercard, sometimes on the Facebook prelims back in the day, and then wonder why no one cared when they got a title shot. This is kind of the same thing. Ulanbekov is going to fight for a title. That's my prediction. He's not next up, despite the fact that he called out for a title shot, but he is going to fight for a title. Like, by 2025, Tadger Ulanbekov will be fighting for a UFC flyweight title, and we're just not going to put him on a main card. We're just not going to do that. And it slowly sucks the life out of the division. I guess I'll tell you who I have next for Ulanbekov, because we just talked about the fight, and I don't have much else to say about it. I gotta go way back here, wasn't it? Yeah, it was super early. It was third fight of the night, wasn't it? I don't know who he fights. Like, he could fight the loser of Moreno Albazi. He could fight the loser of Cop Nicolau. He could fight the loser of Perez Mokaev. Like, he's like the next level down from the title shot. And then for Durden, I've got Match now, because that would just be fun, and that's all I really have right now for Durden. I loved the Manscaped spot with Derek Lewis. That was hilarious. That was dope. And we get to Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Wonderboy Thompson. I actually scored the first round for Wonderboy. I know a lot of people scored it for Shavkat. I just think that with the damage-based criteria, the fact that Shavkat's takedown led to nothing, and the clinch game led to a brief like hockey fight where they were both landing like 1 for 1. I kind of had to give it to Wonderboy, even it is weird. It was like one of those fight. It was like one of those rounds where I'm like, Wonderboy won the round, but he is totally losing this fight. and in the second round, Rakhmonov clinches up with him, puts him down, and runs him into the fence, clinches, puts him down, and then gets the no legs rear naked choke that I didn't think he was going to get. In fact, I was writing in my notes, there's a Darce choke or a back take here in the last 40 seconds. Rakhmonov is looking for a choke here. I doubt he finishes. And then I literally, word for word, these are my notes. Oh, never mind. Wonderboy taps out. It's just like, it's just kind of like, whatever. And it's a great performance from what Rakhmonov, man. It's dominant, but it's like dominating Wonderboy in the way that I think Wonderboy is just prone to being dominated right now. And people want to give him a title shot off this. I don't think so. Again, this kind of goes back to, like, I will say this. I'm actually more interested in what Rakhmonov can do against Leon Edwards than I am what Belal Muhammad can do. Like, you can go back to whatever card it was when Leon Edwards was fighting Belal Muhammad, and you can listen to my preview. You can hear my thoughts before the eye poke ended the fight. I wasn't interested. But again, positioned to do that. The UFC has backed themselves into this corner that you are a fight promotion. When you say something is going to happen, you have to actually make it happen. There you go. Next for Rakhmonov, I've got Gilbert Burns, because he's really the only step up that leads to a title shot, and it's the only thing that makes sense. The other option, I guess, would be you could shelve him. You could do Belal versus Leon, and then Shavkat gets the next title shot. That would be fine. Wonderboy, I've got Jack Della Maddalena. Now I've noticed that Jack Della Maddalena just got booked against Gilbert Burns after I wrote this down. So obviously I won't be getting my wish, but you know what? I'm sticking with it that this would have been the thing that makes sense. People are calling for Wonderboy versus Colby. I get it, but I don't want to see Wonderboy against anyone who, I essentially want to see Wonderboy in nothing but his fights with like Kevin Holland, where people will just agree to stand and bang with him. Like, that's all I want. Tony Ferguson versus Paddy Pimblett. Ferguson had some moments, mostly because Paddy Pimblett is really bad, but we learned nothing. We learned that, frankly, Paddy Pimblett is not an elite fighter, which we already knew. We learned that Paddy Pimblett is a dumbass because he was talking about, like, I've got my new hairstyle, and I think it's going to help me with judges. I think judges think I lost fights because my hair moves. The guy has not lost a decision since 2018. And I don't know if anyone's watched the Nadine Armani and Soren Back fights. He lost. Like, they're not even really contentious decisions. They were in his, like, hometown. Like, they beat him. There is no judge's decision you can point to and be like, hey, man, Paddy Pimblett lost a contentious decision. No, he stole one against Jared Gordon. I had a Twitter post, which was basically like, man, I was talking with somebody about Paddy Pimblett and how, like, there's a reasonable physical, like, tool set for him. Like, he's reasonably powerful, reasonably big for the division. Despite his complete destruction of his body with his diet, he actually seems to be in good shape and, like, decent cardio and whatever. I want you to give Jared Gordon this man's body. Let someone with fight IQ and like the ability to learn how to keep their chin down have Paddy Pimblett's physicality. That's what I would like to see. There were some reasonable moments in this fight, but like realistically, nah. It was Ferguson being like confident on bottom to work for like triangles and stuff, and it wasn't going to happen. Paddy is a reasonably good defensive fighter on the ground. And on the feet, it was two guys getting dinged and probably shouldn't be getting dinged because Paddy, the striking is not great. Tony, the physicality shouldn't be there anymore. And it's that Paddy's just wide open to get hit that allowed the striking to be consistent. And of course, then you have the David Goggins part of things where he was in the corner. And even Tony Ferguson's dad was kind of had a whatever. I didn't see what he said directly to Sonnen. We got the Chael Sonnen version of it where it was like he doesn't know who the head coach is or whatever. And like that's the thing is like I actually kind of feel bad for Goggins because I think he's going to get faulted for this loss in a way that he shouldn't be. Don't get me wrong. He's completely useless to Tony Ferguson. Tony doesn't need more cardio. He doesn't need more. Well, he does need more toughness, but it's not mental toughness. He needs to like, be able to like set his like chin and physical durability back about 10 years. He needs a wizard, not a trainer. He needs a chrono mage, not a trainer. And I don't know. I don't even know what you can do with him. Like really, he's 39 years old. He's not going to relearn how to fight. But like Goggins was useless, but he'll get faulted for this loss that was going to happen anyways. He was terrible in the corner, but at the same time, I have no idea why you would have a strength and conditioning coach in the corner. I had the joke that like, all right. Goggins, what do I do? What adjustments do I do? We're going to do more squats next time. We're going to run an extra mile. Okay. It's not helping me. It's not helping me right now. It was a sad fight. Paddy Pimblett, I would feed to Benoit Saint-Denis. Benoit Saint-Denis is kind of like what they want Paddy to be, frankly. Like in the cage, like skill set wise. Benoit Saint-Denis is what they want Paddy Pimblett to be. Just feed him. Just throw him in there. And also, I mean, like, Paddy's fandom still is strong despite him sucking. So, I mean, you might as well have him lose. Ferguson, retire. Please, retire. There's a whole, like, thing about, like, people who are sane are, like, laughing at Dana White being up there and being like, Tony Ferguson needs to retire. Like, they're just laughing at it. Because the guy who could probably make Tony Ferguson's retirement happen is Dana White. You could not book him in the UFC and make him go to, like, I don't know, PFL. You could pay him a boatload of money to take like a sort of UFC performance center training gig. You could do that. That is within your power to make it so that Tony didn't have to fight. And then if he still wants to fight, whatever, he can do it elsewhere. Then you wash your hands of it and move on. But like, and then there are people who are like, man, you're just hating on your hatred for Dana White is weird. No, this is something Dana White can directly control. Josh Emmett nuked Bryce Mitchell. I didn't really understand why people thought Bryce Mitchell had a chance in this fight. I made a boatload of money off of it because I got Emmett at plus 182 odds to win. And I also had one on him. It was plus 2 something for him to win by knockout. Even though I didn't think he would knock him out, it was just one of those things where like the line was so high. I was like, you know what? We'll throw a little bit of money on that. And this was my big win of the night. It's not that I don't like Bryce Mitchell. I actually do. Again, he's one of those ones who has like weird politics, flat earther, and so on. That like obviously I don't co-sign. But like in the cage, I'm interested in it. But like he's just not that good. He's not that physical is what it comes down to. And he got knocked out. It was a scary moment. Rogan was losing his shit. It was interesting to see Rogan. Okay, we're going to talk about Colby Covington here again real quick. It was interesting to see Rogan talking about like how Bryce Mitchell keeps himself in shape year round, which I do not doubt. This man has a rural farm boy lifestyle. But on top of that, they're like, well, he doesn't cut a lot of weight. I'm like, he's 5'10" and fighting at featherweight. Like, he's not huge or anything, but like, I imagine that the amount of weight that he cuts is reasonably high. And this transitions into Colby because there are like Colby fans who are like, man, Colby Covington doesn't cut weight. Colby Covington's a lightweight and fighting in welterweight because of like sportsmanship and not wanting to be a weight bully, man. Not wanting to be a weight bully at all. Look at the pictures of him at the weigh-in versus in the cage. There is a dehydration difference. He cuts weight. He cuts probably a reasonably standard amount of weight. Not a lot. Not a lot. If he weighs more than, I don't know, 185 pounds, I'd be shocked. But like 185 pounds down to 170 is still 15 pounds, guys. He's cutting weight. I don't know why. People are weird. People are weird about weight cutting. Very weird. Rebook Josh Emmett versus Giga Chikadze, and for Mitchell, time off. Needs to like rethink about some things and just come back in like 8-9 months. And by that point, the division might be in a completely different place. Alonzo Menafield versus Justin Jacoby. I had Jacoby winning the first. I had Menafield winning the second. I had Jacoby winning the third until he dropped Jacoby, and Jacoby kind of screwed up by like clinching with him. I don't think he was all there. I'm not gonna fault Dustin Jacoby, but like, you know, when you get dropped like that in the third round of a fight that is 1-1, you need to do something. And he didn't. He clinched up with him, whatever, just kind of survived the round. I'm fine with the fact that like he was probably, again, exceptionally rocked, so I'm fine with it. But like, you know, it doesn't really change my impressions of Menafield. Like, he's still incredibly powerful and everything and whatever, but like the first round was him not being able to really deal with the jab. And then the second round was him punishing right leads, like power leads from Jacoby, where Jacoby would, for some reason, not utilize the jab. He would try to lead with his power hand, and Menafield would punish that. And then the third, Jacoby would go back to, you know, the jab mostly. I don't know. It is funny to hear people talk about Justin Jacoby who don't follow kickboxing, because they're like, man, he's a glory at kickboxing. He's like one of the best kickboxers in the world, man. And it's like, you look at his kickboxing record and it's like barely above 500. It's like, hang on, I've got to look this up now. Because I was looking it up, and I want to say he's like 2 fights over 500. And I could be wrong on this. So I want to, you know, possibly walk this back if I can. Let's see here. Yeah, professional kickboxing record 10-8 with 9 KOs. He's tough, don't get me wrong. He's very tough. And his losses are to good people like Alex Pereira, Simon Marcus, I could never say his name, Murad Bozindi, help me, Mikado Uehara, Michael Dute. Like, these are good fighters, and he has some wins over some good people as well. Randy Blake is not terrible. Carl Roberson is not terrible. Wayne Barrett is not terrible. But like, no, he's actually not really all that good of a kickboxer. He's by MMA standards, by the division standards, actually a reasonably decent striker, and it doesn't mean nothing that Menafield can compete with him on the feet. But I just think it gets overhyped and overblown a lot. It's kind of like Khalil Roundtree and his "I beat glory kickboxers, man." Anyways, next fights, I got Menafield against Volkan Oezdemir. I think that would be fun. If Menafield was younger, I'd actually really believe in him, because he has fantastic physicality. For whatever reason, he actually gels well with Pat Barry's coaching, and he's getting better. Like, there's more diversity being added to his game, but like it's still pretty bare bones. It's still pretty basic, and that means he's just not on the title shot, like, you know, path. Whereas like Khalil Roundtree, who is like, I compared them a lot in the breakdown, but like, Roundtree has more time to turn himself into something. And for Menafield, it's just not there. So like, put him up against Volkan Oezdemir, a guy who fought for a title, a guy who's a pretty powerful striker, and, you know, let's have a fun fight. Let's do fun stuff. And for Jacoby, I've got Vitor Petrino as kind of like a test fight for Petrino. That being said, he has lost 3 out of 4. Maybe some time off if he can afford to have it would not be a bad idea. Rest, recuperate, relax a little bit. And talking about damage, Irene Aldana versus Carol Hossa. Round 1 was Carol Hossa chunking away at Aldana's leg with low kicks and like just doing a pretty good job. And then in the second and third round was Aldana being like, all right, I can't stand at range with this girl. She's just going to kick me in the leg again and again and again. A record-setting performance. I am going to march her down, and I am going to throw punches, and my straights are going to somehow go right down the center of Hosa's guard repetitively. I'm going to mess her face up and just absolutely go to war with her and make this the ugly fight of this. Was this fight of the night? Was it? Oh, come on. This has to be fight of the night. I haven't looked up the of the night awards. Performance of the night, Josh, it got fight of the night. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Gadziev and Lipsky also getting performance of the night bonuses. Yeah, no, this was the fight of the night where like they went to war. They went to war, and I have nothing but respect for what they both did. But like at the same time, they're both incredibly limited fighters. Like, like they hit each other. Significant strikes landed 349. Good God. And it wasn't the most complicated stuff in the world. It's a weird one because, like, do I think in some ways this changed my mind about Hosa because coming into this, I picked Aldana because I thought Hosa was kind of broken. I was like once upon a time a big fan of Carol Hosa. I thought she was going places. I thought she was a legitimate prospect. That there was this volume striker in there. And then she had a couple of hard fights and it just, I don't know, it kind of broke her. And she doesn't seem to have, she seems to be going through something similar to what Colby Covington was going through. Where it's like, all right, my style is not invincible. And now I need to change things about it. But there's not really any room to change things about it. Because, like, you know, it's the style that you're good at. But she certainly went to war here. And I can't accuse her of breaking. I can't accuse her of being lazy. I can just accuse her of being really, really, really hittable. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, this was insane. By the way, UFC pay Irina Aldana to get her knee fixed because apparently she has a chronic injury of like a year in her knee, and it was getting kicked up here. Pay your fighters to get their bodies fixed, man. Jesus. Aldana's in a weird case here because she fought for a title. She's fought all the top contenders, and I don't really want to see rematches. I have no idea what to do with her. Hosai put against Panikinzad. Cody Garbrandt knocked out Brian Kelleher. I don't have much else to say. I mean, Cody Garbrandt still hits pretty hard. He can still knock people out. He's just a glass cannon. And Kelleher was having success with the low kicks and the pressure and whatever, but the pressure just ended up like opening up opportunities for Garbrandt to hit him and also force Garbrandt to commit to hitting him. So that kind of didn't really work out. He wants Davidson Figueiredo. I'm fine with that matchup. Figueiredo is going to knock him out. And Kelleher, fun action fighter. Don't really have anything particular picky about it. He can fight anybody and it'll be pretty fun. Ariane Lipsky versus Casey O'Neill. I picked O'Neill. I was let down by that. Essentially, Lipsky came out here and fought well. And the problem, the frustrating thing about Lipsky is that I have no faith that she'll fight well next time out because she'll have fights where she's putting it together. And it's like, Ariane Lipsky, you know, she has all the physical talent in the world. She has a pretty good technical basis. When she's sharp, she's accurate and creative and fights at a decent pace and does all of these things, and it's going to be great. And then she'll have a fight like where she got knocked out by Priscilla Cachoeira. I don't know. I still don't trust her, but she picked up a cool submission victory here. She got herself an extra 50 G's, baby, and yeah, that's about all I got. Casey O'Neill is just a significantly limited fighter. I knew that coming in. I just don't think she's a fantastic athlete. Like when you go hammer and tong with Roxanne Modaffari, fighting your fight, I might add, fighting your fight, it's not great. And when you have no real answers for Jennifer Maia, that's not great either. And now you've just kind of got out Ariane Lipsky by Ariane Lipsky. She's still fine. I'm not saying like retire or get cut or whatever. But there is a significant question of like, Exactly who does Casey O'Neill beat? I've got her maxed up against JoJo Wood because it's a fight I would pick her to win. It's a fight with some marquee value. And, it will be fun. It's not an easy fight by any means, but I think she needs hard fights. And then for Lipski, I've got her against Tracy Cortez because they're kind of in the same boat of you absolutely have the upside. You have a high ceiling. You're athletic enough. You're diverse enough. When you're sharp, you're really good. But you both also have like incredible consistency issues. So put them in there and see what happens. That was pretty cool. Andre Fili knocked out Lucas Almeida. I'm not going to say that this is what I called for because I did not. But some of the things I did call for were there. Like Almeida didn't look super comfortable against a guy as tall as him. He looked very, very stiff. He's a guy who likes to be insulated by his reach and then turn on the aggression. And he couldn't really do that against Fili. And then he got knocked out. And it's cool to see Fili get that win. It's awesome. It's fun. He's gone through it lately. Apparently, like, man has gone through a lot of stuff in his life in recent time, including like losing a longtime friend, who he thought of as his brother, losing his dog, which is, it happens, but it's incredibly emotional. We saw this. Wasn't he the one that had his girlfriend had a miscarriage or something? It's been rough times. I've got him against Alex Caceres. Two absolute journeyman guys who it's stunning have not fought each other. Why not? Why not do that? Almeida, unfortunately, probably gets cut. He's 1-3 in the UFC. I would keep him around and have him as a welcome to the UFC guy. Anyone who's like kind of like used to being able to be comforted at range or have a safety net, just put him in there with Almeida and see what happens. Shamil Gaziev defeated Martin Budai. I can't say that I was obviously wrong. I picked Budai, but I can't say that I'm necessarily higher on Shamil than I was coming in. Don't get me wrong. The guy is fairly athletic, fairly good on the front foot when he's striking. He mixes up to the body and the head very nicely. He utilizes some knees, elbows, and punches. He is a pretty solid takedown artist. There is potential. There is a lot of fun there. But like even in this fight, he was gassed after a round. And it was just the fact that Budai was kind of broken. Not mentally, but like clearly, physically a little bit broken heading into the second round, bleeding. Doctor checked on the cut multiple times. That he just kind of got a mercy stoppage from Mark Smith. So like the classic problem he has is still very, very much there. And I'm still very, very much questioning it that like Gaziev does it, or Gaziev, I keep adding a D, he doesn't have the classic heavyweight things, which necessarily to me indicate, I guess I shouldn't say the two things because he might actually be quite durable, but like his lack of cardio is a big question mark. Also, of course, I'm not super rooting for him because his post-fights become very political. Anyways, yeah. He got the win. He got the W. Move him on to like Rodrigo Nascimento. Move Budai back to like fighting Mo Usman, I think. Like Mo Usman's a guy who kind of gets away with a lot of like physical like power and so on. And Budai, despite the fact that it didn't look like this one, still a pretty durable guy. Still pretty, pretty reasonably well-rounded, actually. See what happens. So that was UFC 296. Check out the links down below for my social medias, my gaming stuff, and the MMA simulator over on the Discord. And I will see you. Hang on, I'll give some quick thoughts on the next card. The first card of 2024. Hang on, I clicked on the wrong thing. UFC Fight Night in 3 weeks. We've got Ankalaev versus Johnny Walker. Hey, I don't have to really give a pick on that one because I already have. Nicolau versus Manel Kape. That's fun. Ricky Simon versus Mario Bautista. That's fun. Ketlin Vieira versus Macy Chiasson, relevant to the division, even if I don't really care for it. Phil Hawes versus Bruno Ferreira, it's fine. Jim Miller versus Gabriel Benitez. Andrei Arlovsky versus Waldo Cortez Acosta. That's weird matchmaking. Given that Cortez Acosta is coming off a win over a guy who knocked out Arlovsky. Yana Santos versus Norma Dumas. Gaston Bolaños versus Marcus McGee. Basil Hafes is back against Preston Parsons. Two guys who kind of impressed me a little bit more than I thought in their last fights, so that's cool. Felipe Muniz versus, Dennis Bondar. Oh, why? Fareed Basharat versus Taylor Lapilus. Nicholas Mota versus Tom Nolan. Weston Wilson versus Jean Silva. That is not good. I don't really believe in John Silva. He'll beat Weston Wilson though. Spoiler. Everyone in the UFC will beat Weston Wilson. All right, that's the fight card. That's the fight card from this weekend. That's a quick preview of what I'm going to talk about probably next time I'm breaking down fights, but there may be an episode between now and then where I'm talking about something non-UFC or maybe taking some listener questions. So hey, hop over the Discord, ask me questions, and you may actually get yourself, you get your question addressed here on the podcast. So peace out.